Welcome back. Today in this session, we will be learning the hands-on on convolutional neural networks. The agenda of the presentation will be this. First, we will see the basics that are required for the implementation, and then we will go into the Google Colab file where we will see the actual implementation. Before we start looking into the implementation of CNN, let us see some of the basics which are required from the implementation perspective. So, as a learner, the possible data that you can take is probably we will be working on RGB, that is a colored image, or we will be working on a grayscale image. This is the second possible input that we may give, and the third is the binary images, or we can also call it as black and white image. These are the possible inputs we will be working on CNN. Next, how exactly the image will be seen by the system, how system will read the image is the next important point that we need to understand. Here if you see, the image is always read as a collection of pixels, or we can call it as a grid of pixel values. Now, what exactly is a value? Here it is just a number. When you see here a particular cell, a particular value cell here is having a totally 3 numbers. Why exactly it is the 3 numbers? You will be learning this very shortly. So, every pixel will be represented by a number. So, this is how a system will read an image. This is one more example to understand how a system is reading an image. It is a collection of pixels. So, if this is an image, every image is represented by a dots, which is a pixel, and every pixel will be having a number. Now, the most important concept that you need to understand here is the number of channels. So, what are the 3 different types of images that we have seen? We have seen an RGB, grayscale, and then binary image. Now, let us understand how many channels each of these images will have. For example, if you consider a grayscale, on the left side what you are seeing is a grayscale image. Now, this is a pixel representation of a same image. Now, if you take one particular pixel value, so how many values will be used to represent one pixel? So, when you are taking a grayscale, a pixel will have only one value. What is that one value? That value can be anywhere between black from black to white, because it is a grayscale image. When you see this particular image, we see shades of black and shades of white only. So, it is anywhere between black and white. That means one particular pixel will have at the most only one value, and that value will be anywhere between 0 to 255. What is 0 to 255? 0 is represented as a black, and 255 value is represented for white. Now, since it is a combination of black and white, or anywhere between black and white, so you will have a value for every of the pixel, you will have a value between 0 and 255. Therefore, for whenever we are working on a grayscale, the number of channels that we need here is 1. This is important point we need to remember for the implementation perspective. So, this is what is an example. Now, this is if you assume this is a grayscale image, you see every pixel what you are taking, this pixel you see the number is 157, and if you see this particular pixel, it is the value 5. Why the value 5? Because 0 black is represented with the value 0. So, this particular pixel value is more towards black, therefore, the number is closer to 0, which is 5. Now, let us take one of this particular. Now, if you take this particular pixel value, this is more white in color, it is more towards white. So, white is represented with the value 255. Therefore, here the number is 251, which is closer to the value 255. Now, let us take anywhere intermediate values. Let us, if you look into this particular pixel, here this is neither completely black nor it is completely totally white. So, we can say that this is a grayscale. This particular pixel value, okay, let me show you, highlight. So, this particular one is a grayscale, or it is more grayish, therefore, the pixel value of this is 145. So, I hope you are understanding. Whenever we deal with grayscale images, to represent each pixel we just need only one number. So, let us move on. Let us take, suppose if you are working on binary images. What are binary images? The binary images are black and white. The other name for this is black and white. Now, when you look into this particular image, it is either black or it is white. We do not have anywhere in between. Therefore, this is a pixel representation of a same image. So, how many channels that we require here to represent one pixel? How many numbers that we require? We just require only one number. That number can be, if it is a black, we represent it as a 0. If it is white, we represent it as 255, or we can even use 0 for black or 1 for white. So, every pixel here will be again represented with only one number. Therefore, the number of channels that are required for a binary image is once again 1. So, now let us understand with a color image, which is an RGB, which we call it as color image. This is one image, and here is an pixel representation of a same image. Now, in order, if you take one pixel value, let us assume I am taking this particular pixel value. Now, if I have to represent this pixel 1, how many numbers are needed? So, we have seen in a grayscale and even in binary image, we just require one pixel value, one value to represent a pixel. But when we are dealing with a color image, we require totally 3 numbers. We require 3 numbers to represent one particular pixel value. Let us understand more what exactly is this 3. So, because it is a color image, we have RGB component in this. We have red, R stands for red, G stands for green, and B stands for blue. Now, in order to represent one particular pixel, we will have a combination of 3. Therefore, the number of channels that are required when we are dealing with the color images are 3. So, there is one more here. You can see there is one particular color. Now, in order to represent this particular color, we require totally 3. So, I pause here for a second. You can represent any color that you want to take. This color is a combination of 3, that is R, G and B. So, I hope this is clear. Now, let us when we come back, this is what we had seen initially. To represent, this is a color image, what we are seeing on the screen, this is a color image. Now, in order to represent, every pixel will now have a 3 components. Those 3 components are R, G and B. So, this is what is. This is only with respect to color images. So, a quick summary, what we have seen, when we are dealing with the grayscale image, the number of channels that we require are only 1. When we are dealing with the binary image, the number of channels that we require are 1. When we are dealing with the color images, then the number of channels that we require are 3. This is important point from the implementation perspective. Next, I think in one of the sessions we have learnt ANN, that is artificial neural network. Now, why can't we use multi-layer perceptron concept for dealing with the images? In one of the session when we have learnt ANN, there we have taken and structured, we have taken in data in the form of an CSV. There we have seen that number of neurons that we put at an input layer will be number of features that we have learnt in the previous sessions. Now, why can't we use a multi-layer perceptron or ANN when we are dealing with an images? This is one of the important concept that we need to understand. Now, for an input, For example, if we consider this as an input. Now, here the requirement is you want to categorize what kind of an image it is. So, this is a pleasant scenery image. Now, when you want to categorize this, then every of the feature is important for you to understand in order to classify it. For you, it is important to understand the mountains, it is important to understand the sun here, there is water, there are some flowers, plants, leaves. Every of these will contribute for us to say that it is a scenery image. Okay. Now, what is an input that we are going to pass when we are, what is the input that you will pass for a neural network here? The input here is the entire image. The entire image is passed as an input. How do an image is read by a system? Image is read by a pixel values. Now, for example, if you take an image of, for example, we are dealing with a color image. When we are dealing with color image, how many number of channels that we take? The number of channels here are 3. I hope now it is clear to you. When I say channel, it is an RGB. So, here every pixel value will be represented with 3 numbers. Okay. Now, what exactly is 28 cross 28? So, this is the width is 28 and the height is 28. So, that means we have 28 number of rows are there and 28 number of columns are there. That is what the meaning, and we have into 3. Into 3. Why 3? Because one is for R, one is for G and one is for B component. Now, when we take this particular, when we look into this calculation 28 into 3, we will get a totally 2352 value. Now, which means 2352 number of neurons that you will be passing at an input layer, or rather neurons, the input dimension here is 2352. Now, how we had seen based on number of features, suppose in one of the example in iris data set, the number of features what we had considered were only 4. So, that is sepal length, sepal width, petal length, petal width. So, input dimension was just only 4. So, there was one more example which we had seen on ovarian ovarian cancer prediction. There the number of features were 49. So, number of input dimensions what we were taking there was 49. But see here, if you use the same neural network concept or multi-layer perceptron for images, the input for an image is an image. The input for a neural network is an image. What will be the size of an image? If you consider the lowest resolution image, which is 28, and if you are considering a colored image, then number of neurons that we need to pass, the input dimension will be 2352. Okay. Now, let us take one more example. We have one more color image, therefore, the channels here are 3, and now we are increasing the resolution of an image. Now, we are considering an image of size 200 cross 200, which means I am considering an image which is having the width 200 and then the height 200, or in other simple terms, number of rows and number of columns here are 200 cross 200. 200 rows are there and 200 columns are there. Now, if you consider this particular image, look at the number of what is the input dimension. The input dimension is 1,20,000. So, this is something very huge that you are passing to a neural network. But today, if you look into a full HD configuration, we will have 1920 cross 1080. This is the dimension for a full HD, full high quality, high dimensional image that you consider. Then if you take an ultra HD image, this is what. So, from this, what are we trying to understand? whenever we are dealing with an images, we cannot go with a conventional multi-layer perceptron architecture, we cannot go with. What is the reason? Because the input is being passed, and the input here is an image, and image is represented as a matrix, and the values inside this matrix will be pixel values, and those pixel values will range anywhere between 0 to 255, and we can either have one single channel or we can have 3 channels based on type of images. So, because of such a huge dimension of an input, it is not possible to go for multi-layer perceptron. Okay, now this is one more example. Now, for if you take this particular image here, the image what we have considered here is a handwritten digit 2. Now, this 2, let us assume the number of rows and columns here are 7 cross 7. That means it is a 7 cross 7 dimension image. Now, here if you consider this as a black and white image, or it is a binary image, that means every of the pixel we require just only I think it is a grayscale image, it is not binary, I am sorry, it is a grayscale image. Therefore, we are representing the values anywhere between 0 to 255. So, 0. If you consider this entire, here there is no values that are represented, here there are no values that are represented. So, therefore, you will see all these values are zeros. All these values are 0. Similar way, on the top also we do not have any data which is present. So, because it is all black, the values here is all zeros. Now, wherever you are seeing there is some data that is present, we can able to say that there is some values. You can see that there is a value which is present here, there is a value. If you look into this particular matrix, it is a representation of the handwritten digit 2. Okay. Now, since it is a 7 cross 7, 7 it is a 49. So, the input dimension here is a 49. Now, this is a diagrammatic representation. Now, if there are 49 neurons that you are placing at an input layer, now let us assume there is only one hidden layer, and let us also assume we have put 49 number of neurons at an hidden layer. Now, it is a fully connected neural network, dense layer. That means every neuron will be connected to every other neuron. Since it is a fully connected neural network, then first neuron is connected to 49 neurons, second neuron is connected to 49 neurons of hidden layer, third neuron, that means 49 neurons are connected to 49 number of neurons. That means the number of connections or number of weights that we are using here is 2401. So, I hope you are able to imagine the complexity that we are increasing for a model. This is one reason why conventional ANN or multi-layer perceptron is not feasible to deal with an images. And what is the size of an image that we have considered is the smallest configuration, smallest resolution, that is 7 cross 7. But in reality, when we want to work on some, when we are working on any of the real time project, the dimension of an image will be much larger. We will be dealing with the 512 cross 512, 256 cross 256. So, we cannot go for this kind of an architecture. That is the reason whenever we are dealing with an images, the concept of convolutional neural network was invented. Okay. Now, the next important concept that we need to understand is pre-processing. So, what was one of the pre-processing technique that we had seen when we were learning ANN or multi-layer perceptron? We had used min-max scalar. We had scaled down the values from to a particular range. It can be between 0 to 1 or it can be between -1 to 1. So, this is all when we were dealing with ANN. Now, what we are learning here is a CNN, convolutional neural network. Now, for a convolutional neural network, what is when we are dealing with the images, what are minimum pre-processing that we need to consider? Now, for a human eye, because of our natural intelligence, whenever we give this kind of an image, we know that this is X. Now for a human eye, this is also an X, this is also a X, and this is also an X. So with our natural intelligence, we can able to say that all these, although all these 4 are 4 different, but for us we have that intelligence to say that all these are X only. If this is an input image, all these are different orientations of X. Similar way, let us take one more example, which is O, or you can read this as 0. Now if you see, all these are different orientations of this particular input. So human eye can able to identify this, but now when we are dealing with when you want your algorithm to learn this, or when you are building an algorithm, for a system also, for a model, this image is different from this particular image. Why it is too different? Now let us compare. Now when you take the pixel value of this, here the pixel value is different from what the pixel value of this. So when you compare this and this, the pixel values of these 2 images are different. Therefore system reads these 2 as 2 different images, but ideally it is not. It is also O, and this is also 0, this is also 0. So this is one of the important point that we need to consider whenever we are dealing with an CNN. So what is this? Whenever we take an same input or one particular input, we have to see this image with in a different orientations. So that is one of the important pre-processing that we need to consider. So when we are writing a code, what is that package that will help us in doing this pre-processing? We have something called as image data generator. What is this image data generator? Whatever we have seen in the previous example, I want to see a particular image in a different orientations. Now rather than having say for example, you are dealing with medical images. In a medical image, a particular patient has gone for a scan, and when a patient is lying on a scanning bed. Now when an scanning machine is taking an image, it will be taken on in a particular orientation. Now due to various complexity with respect to patient health, probably when a scan was done, the patient has moved the body. Probably the patient is not comfortable lying in a straight position, so patient was moving. So because of this, there is a slight change in the orientation of an image. So that means we have to consider all these aspects when we are reading an image. So in a real time, we will get every these kind of an orientation when we are taking an image. So all these is taken care by this particular package called image data generator. What this image data generator does, it takes care of these orientations. For example, first you need to import this image data generator. This is a part of TensorFlow, Keras and pre-processing. So and in pre-processing we are dealing with an images. So we image data generator is a package that is used in Keras. Keras is part of your TensorFlow. Therefore this is the flow that we are using when we are writing a code. From TensorFlow, Keras, pre-processing, image, we are importing image data generator. And what this image data generator does, what all things that it will take care? It will first rescale. The first component that you will pass to this particular function is a rescale. What is a rescale? Now rather than having the values between 0 to 255, you can scale down the values between 0 to 1. So rather than working on larger values within your matrix, within the image matrix, we are scaling down the values between 0 to 1. So, why 255? Because the maximum number that we can have is 255. When you divide a number 255 with the 255, you get the value 1. So, when you want to scale down the values between 0 and 1, we take perform this particular operation. Next, there is a shear range. What exactly is shear is, now when you take this particular image, let us assume this is a square, a proper square which is aligned with axis x axis and y axis. Now when you look at this and when you look at this particular image, so what exactly has happened here, this square has a slightly slanted. You are slanting this particular shape of an image along with an axis. You can either slant the shape of an image along the x axis, or you can slant the shape of an image along the y axis. So, this is what is the shear. You can control to what percentage you want to slant the image. This is an example. When you consider this as an input image, here you are seeing an image and you see these are the different orientations of a same image. So, with this, what is one more hidden thing that we are doing? Are we not increasing? We just have one sample, one image here, and here we are getting multiple versions of a same image. So, in pre-processing, we also, this is also a data augmentation. What is data augmentation? We are increasing the samples. What is a sample? Sample here is an input. We are increasing the samples. How are we increasing the samples? By using the pre-processing technique. And what is helping you to do it? It is image data generator. Then next, we have something called as zoom. So, what exactly is zoom? Here this particular will help you to learn a particular image from a different scale. So, probably when we zoom in, when we zoom out, you will be able to extract more number of different features. So, the next parameter that we pass for an image data generator is zoom range. Once again, we can control how much you want to zoom. So, we can pass the values here. So, what this particular zoom underscore range does, this will help the algorithm or a model that we are building to learn the object or an image at a different scales. Next, we have an horizontal flip and we have an vertical flip. This is an image. And when we take an horizontal flip, this is an original image. When we take an horizontal flip, you get the same image you get to see in this orientation, and vertical flip you get to see the image in this. And next, so this is all the pre-processing that we do. This is also called as data augmentation. What exactly we are doing here? We just have a few samples of, let us take, we have one particular input image. That one input image, we are seeing the image in a different orientations. Now, when we see this with a different orientations, by default one single image you are seeing in a multiple ways. So, we are increasing the samples of our training data set. Okay. Next, so this is with respect to training data that we are doing. When we are dealing with the testing, so in the last session we have seen whenever we are taking an data set, you are splitting the data set into training and testing. So, all these augmentation you do only with the training data set. When it comes to a test data set, we just only go for scaling the images. We are scaling the pixel values from 0 to 1. So, why is that we are not going with test images also? Because once your model is well trained, during the testing, any sort of an image, any orientation of an image, the model should be still able to categorize to which class it belongs to. So, this augmentation what we are doing is only for a training samples, but not for a testing. Okay. Next, this is what we have learnt. We have seen how many number of channels are there. We have seen how to do a pre-processing. Next, most important, how do we read the data? In your when we were learning the ANN, we have seen when we are taking an CSV file, if at all if you are taking a data in CSV file, you had a package read and you had a function read underscore CSV. Then if you are taking a data in Excel form, we had a function read underscore Excel. So now now we are dealing with CNN, we are dealing with an images. If we are dealing with an images, how do we pass the data to the code or to the model that we are building? So here we are dealing with an images. So we have a training data and then we have a testing data. So it is always preferable to pass this in the form of folders. So for example, if your aim is to classify, we have a chest X-ray images and then we want to classify whether it is been affected with the COVID or it is not. This is the problem statement. If this is your problem statement, take a folder and inside you keep the images for training and you keep the images for testing. Then what is your classification here? We have a classification whether given chest X-ray image is affected with COVID or it is a non-COVID normal image. So it is a binary classification. Because it is a binary classification, under training you will have a folder where you will pass all the COVID images, you will have the folder you will pass the non-COVID images. In general, you will pass you will have train images and you will have a train folder and you will have a test folder. Inside this we will have a subfolders. These subfolders, here the subfolder here is COVID and non-COVID. In general, you can have any number of subfolders. Those subfolders actually defines the classes. Most important concept that defines the classes. Here the number of subfolders what we have are 2, therefore it is a binary classification. Say for example, you are working on an cancer classification where we have benign images, we have malignant images and we have a border case. In that case, is it not 3 classes that we have? For every of the class you should have an images. So we will have an benign folder, we will have a border case folder and we will have a malignancy folder. So the subfolders actually defines as the number of classes. I hope this point is clear to you. And the same with test images. Whenever we are dealing with if at all for training, if you have 2 classes, for testing also you will have 2 classes. So this is how you store save the images in your system and then pass this to your model. Now how do you write a code where you are reading the data? Now since we are dealing with the folders, is it not we have a train folder, we have a test folder, again under train folder we have a subfolders, is it not we are dealing with the folders here? We have saved an images in the form of in the folders. Therefore we have first we have a package called train underscore data gen. What is this train underscore data gen? This is an instance of image data generator. What is image data generator? It is mainly used for pre-processing and data augmentation, right? So this train underscore data gen is a part of this image data generator. Good. Now why this is required? This is required because whatever the training data that I am going to pass, every of the image which is stored in this training data should pass through should undergo this pre-processing and data augmentation. Every of this image should pass through this. Therefore we have to first take this training underscore data gen. Next we have flow from directory. What is this flow from directory? Flow from directory expects a path. The path. What is this path? The path here is your training path. So, the URL or the path where you are going to store your training data, that path should be specified here as a first parameter. Okay, and this is what is this flow from directory expects a path. And what this path should have? The path should compulsorily have the subfolders. The path, when you are passing this train path, it will have subfolders, and each of these subfolders by default is considered as a class label. So, here it is an binary classification, and the subfolders here is your COVID and non-COVID, which is a class label. And all the images which are stored in COVID will get the value 0, and all the images which are stored in a non-COVID folder will get the images 1, will get the value 1, or it also takes the values based on the alphabetical order. Not necessarily that always COVID should get 0, non-COVID should be 1, it can be vice versa, or it is based on the alphabetical order. If based on the alphabetical order, COVID comes first, so it gives 1 label, and next comes N, therefore, this all the images which are stored will get an value of another class. So, this is what flow from directory does this. When there is a path name, you have to compulsorily specify a path name, and whatever the path name that you are specifying, by default it will undergo the pre-processing. What is the pre-processing? Every image which is stored in COVID, every image which is stored in non-COVID will go through all these operations, will go through all these operations. It will scale down the values, it will look into a different slants, it will zoom in with the different scales, and then it will look into an horizontal and vertical, whatever you are specifying here. Every image that you are passing in the training will go through all those pre-processing techniques that is been specified. Then now when we have considered an image, when we have considered an input, not necessarily that the images will be of even shapes, will be having an same shape. So, what you are doing, whatever may be the size of the image that we have considered, we are changing those shape, those images to a particular height and width. You may have an uneven sized images in your training, but when this particular line, what it will do, it will take care of scaling down all those values to all those images to a particular size. It is resizing the images that we have taken in each of these folders. So, it will now here you can specify. Here we can specify. Target size. Here we can specify the width as height and width as 64 cross 64. We can take it as 32 cross 32. We can specify it as 512 cross 512. Whatever may be the size of the images in the folder, when you specify the target size, every of the image will come down to that particular size that you are specifying. Then we have a class underscore mode. This is important for us when we are dealing with the binary classification. If at all, if you are dealing with the binary classification, the class mode will be binary. Suppose if you are working on multi-class classification, the class mode should be categorical. And what is the batch size? Rather than we passing the entire training data at a time, we pass them in the form of batches. I will take first 8 images at a time, 16 images at a time, 32 images at a time. That is what is the batch size. So, this is this is how we prepare a training set. This is how you need to pass the training data to a model. Let us proceed. Now, what we have understood so far is how to read a data and then what are pre-processing that we are building or we are using. Apart from this, there are other pre-processing techniques, but these are minimum pre-processing that we will be using. Then once this is done, the next is model building. So how will we build the model? Now in the theory class you would have seen the working mechanism of convolutional neural network. So we are passing an input image. This will go through the layers of convolution, and then you will also have the activation function ReLU, and then we are extracting this convolution operation will help you to extract the features, and pooling will help you to reduce by extracting retaining only the most important features. Once this is done, you are flattening, and then it is a fully connected neural network. So let us go each one by one. Now if you take this particular slide, when I ask you what is this image, so this image you will look into this image very carefully and then say that probably I think this is an image of an elephant. Okay. Now when you look into this image, by looking at the shape, by looking at the tail here, by looking at the length of the legs, probably we can say that this is an kangaroo. So next, when you look into this particular image, when we carefully look into, there is a chameleon which is there here. So similar way, when we look into, we have an oval that is there here, owl that is there. Now what exactly happened in each of these images? Our human eye was able to look into this entire image, and we were able to extract the features, and we were able to say that okay, by looking at this entire image we extracted some features, and we were able to say that this is where there is an owl which is present. Now when we look into this particular, by carefully viewing, we were able to say that it is kangaroo. So our human eye was able to go through the entire image, we were able to extract the features. Now when we are building a model here is an algorithm or a CNN model, which is that human eye which is helping to extract the features is the kernel. We have to define a filter here. Kernel is also called as a filter. Now what this kernel will do, this is an image and this is a kernel. So you will place this and you will perform a convolution operation. So the convolution operation will take place. Now when you pass one kernel through the entire image, it will go through the entire image and it performs the convolution operation, and what it is doing, it is extracting the features. And the features that it has extracted, since it is a matrix, here image is represented in the form of a matrix, because every of these pixel will have a value. Image will have a number of rows and columns, it will have a width and height, so we can say that it is a matrix representation. Because here it is a matrix, we are taking a kernel also will be a matrix of a particular size. So we are performing an operation, and what operation we are doing? We are doing a convolution operation. So we will do a point by point multiplication, 1 into this value, whatever the value that you are taking here, you will multiply with this. So we are performing a convolution operation, and what the resultant of this will be once again one more matrix. So this is what is the convolution operation, the convolutional layer in CNN. Now when we take by considering one filter or one kernel, when we have passed through the entire image, we are going to get one matrix. Now imagine the same kernel, the same filter, I will again pass through the entire image. So what matrix we get? Is it not the same matrix that we get? So instead, when we pass a different kernel and when we pass through the entire image, is it not that you are getting a different matrix? Which means the analogy can be understand this, when we pass a different kernel and when we allow that kernel to go through the entire image, that kernel is now extracting a different features. This one kernel will, when it goes through the entire image, it extracts some features. When we pass the same kernel through the entire image, again and again it reads the same, again and again it extracts the same. But instead of extracting the same features, let us change the kernel and allow this kernel to go through the entire image again. So this time the kernel will again, because it is a different values that you have specified, what features it extracts will be different. So why we have specified, why I was very much stretching on this point here is, see, we have how is that we are writing this code is, now what is this? It is an input image, correct? Now for an input image, what all that you need to specify, let me erase and then let us look into. The first step, in order to do this entire, we require an input image. For an input image, what is that we are able to see here? We have number of rows, number of columns that you are specifying in the form of, suppose if at all, if you take an example, if you had 64 rows and 64 columns. So we have to specify what is the width and what is the height. And along with this, there is first important point we have learnt. What is that? How many number of channels that we need to specify. Suppose if it is a grayscale, the number of channel will be 1. If it is a binary image, the number of channels is 1. Suppose if you are taking an RGB colored image, the number of channels will be 3. So here that is what is your input underscore shape. In the code you will see this particular line. So what is this? Here this is the width and height and this is the channel. So based on what kind of input that you are taking, accordingly you need to specify. Here we are specified 3, that means what images that we have considered here is an colored image. Suppose if you are specifying here it as 1, then probably we would have considered a grayscale or we would have considered an binary image. Okay. Next, along with this, we are also seeing one more parameter. What is that? We have a conv 2D. What is this con? This is a convolutional. And what is 2D? It is a 2-dimensional. We are considering a 2-dimensional one, therefore it is a 2-dimensional. And what is this 32 and what is this 3 cross 3? Now, let us look into this 32. Here is, now if you pass one kernel through this entire image, we got this. Now what is this? Maybe this 0.77 is some feature it has extracted. Here 1 is some feature it has extracted. This 1 is some feature, the value of that particular pixel which has some feature information. So every of this matrix has some features that it has extracted. Now the same kernel again and again when I pass through, there is no change in this values. It will be the same. That means no additional new feature it has extracted. So what is a good way? Instead of passing the same kernel again and again, I will take now a different kernel. So what is that different kernel? Let us assume the different kernel is this. We have 1, minus 1, 1, minus 1, 1, minus 1. We have a different kernel. Now there is a difference between this and this. There is a difference between what we have considered here and what we have considered. Now when we pass this kernel onto this entire image, is it not that we get a different features? It will not, is it not that it extracts a different features? So 32 here is how many such filters you are passing. So 32 such filters we are considering. Is the number 32 always the same? No. You can based on the type of a problem, based on the type of the data that you are considered, this 32 is a hyperparameter. Now what is this 3 cross 3? 32 such filters we are considering, and what is the size of each 32? The size of each 32 will be 3 cross 3. That means I am considering 3 rows, 3 columns. What will be the values of these 3 cross 3? Initially randomly it will be taking some value. This is what we have to learn here. What kind of in the back propagation these values will be updated. Okay, let us see those things later. So I hope this line is clear to you. We are the first layer that we are considering here is a convolutional layer, and for convolution what all operations what all things that you will be passing, you require an input. Therefore, we are passing an input underscore shape, and here the most important that we need to specify here is how many number of channels. Okay. Then here first what we are performing is a convolution operation. What is convolution operation is doing? This is helping us to extract the features. Okay. How it is extracting the features? By kernel passing through the entire image. Now, if you take the same kernel, it is the same features it extracts. So, to have a different features to be extracted, have different kernels. How many such kernels we want to specify, we want to use should be specified. What should be the size of the kernel, that has to be specified. Okay. So, once this is done, once this particular operation is done, next we have activation function that has to be passed. Now, once you get the output, after we perform the convolution operation, we are getting this particular matrix. Okay. Now, this matrix is passed through an activation function, and that activation function here is ReLU. What this ReLU does is, now when it has, now what is this image? This image is X, correct? In this, now in order to say that it is X, what is sufficient for you? Actually, this is sufficient for us to say it is X, right? For us, all these, this pixel, all these are actually not at all contributing for us to say that it is X. Now, in order to identify a particular person, in order to recognize a particular person, you do not require the entire picture of a person. Some features are sufficient for us to say that it is X. So, now what ReLU does is, those pixels which are not very important, which is not contributing for us to classify, so those pixel values will be eliminated. So, eliminated here is, it is converting that to 0. So, if you see here now 0.77, that means maybe this particular pixel is contributing for me to identify. This is an important feature, but whereas this value what you have got is negative. So, negative does not make any contribution for me to identify a particular image. So, when what ReLU does is, ReLU converts this to 0. So, how it converts it into 0? Look at this. Now, what is the formula for ReLU? The formula of ReLU is, let us go back and write here only. The formula for ReLU is a max of x comma 0 or 0 comma x. So, this is what is the ReLU formula. So, now max, what is x value? X value is 0.77. So, 0.77, and we have a comma, this is x and this is 0. So, now what is the maximum between these two? Max of 0.77 and 0, the maximum value is 0.77. So, 0.77 is retained. Then it will go to the next one. What is the next? Minus 0.11 and 0. What is the maximum between these two? The maximum between these two is 0. Therefore, what ReLU does is, now all those which are not contributing much for me to classify, not so important features, even if you eliminate these pixels, it is you will be still able to identify what is a particular image. So, ReLU eliminates those pixels by retaining those, by changing those values to 0. I hope this line is clear to you. And next, why CNN was why ANN cannot be used for an image, because we have seen somewhere in the initial slides number of pixels when you take an image of size 28 to 28 and number of channels are 3, we got somewhere around 2300 pixel values. So so many number of it becomes a burden to a model. So what our aim is, we should start reducing the size of an image also. Now how can you reduce the size of an image? You should start eliminating some pixels. Only when you eliminate some pixels, the size of an image will start reducing. Now when you are eliminating, how do you eliminate it? So what pooling does is, pooling, this is an analogy, what exactly pooling does. Pooling will now, there are 3 different types of pooling. We have a max pooling, we have a min pooling, and we have a global pooling or average pooling. So now what exactly is a max pooling? Max pooling is, and to this we should also specify the window size. So here the window size is 2 cross 2. That means this is the output of the ReLU activation function. In the convolution, when it is passed to a ReLU, the output of ReLU is this particular matrix. Now because the size what you have specified is 2 cross 2, we are going to consider 2 cross 2 here. In this 2 cross 2, because you have specified it as a max pooling, out of this entire, which is the maximum value, out of these 4, what is the maximum value that we have? The maximum value here is 1. Then why have we not specified the window size as 1 cross 1? If it is 1 cross 1, is it not that we consider only 1? When it is 1, then is it not again the same size matrix we will get as an output? Then where is that you have reduced the size? Correct? So we cannot go for 1 cross 1. So keep 2 cross 2 as a minimum configuration. So when we write 2 cross 2, we are taking and if you specify max, the max among that. That means out of this, where is that maximum feature? The one is obviously there is a large amount of value information which is stored here. This information is sufficient for me among these 4. This is sufficient. Therefore, you are taking it as 1. For this, sometimes we also call it, we also pass a stride. What is a stride? Now, I want to move this window. Whatever the window that we have specified or whatever the initial box that you have specified, I want to move this. Now, if the stride is 2, I leave 2 and then go for next. I will take this. Out of these 4, the max pooling, the most important is 0.33 maximum value. Again we specify the stride as 2, that means it will leave the 2 and it will take the next. So out of these, the maximum value 0.44, again a stride as 2, so it is these 4. So although we do not have an information, it will be assuming it as a 0. Out of these, the maximum is 0.33. Next, stride, when you take 2, you will come down, you will leave these 2, you will come down to these, among this the maximum value, so on so forth. So now if you see this, what is that we have understood? What is the input image we have considered? The input image what we have considered is X. And by doing this convolution operation and ReLU activation and max pooling, what is that we have extracted? Look at this matrix, look at this diagonal value, because the kernel what you have, the kernel that we have considered. Using this particular kernel, what we have considered, we have got this matrix from this ReLU to this, from max pooling we finally got this. Now what is in this X, what portion it has extracted? If you observe this matrix very carefully, look at this diagonal value. The diagonal value here is 1. So, that means we can understand in that x, what it has extracted is this portion is what it has extracted, it has learnt, it has extracted. Now, just imagine if you pass the same matrix, same kernel, same to this particular same image, is it not again and again it is going to read the same thing? So, instead now when we change this kernel, probably now it will, what features it extracts will be, it will be extracting a different features. So, in the implementation, the next important layer when we are building a model here is the max pooling. Is it compulsory that we should always go for max pooling? Answer is no. Once again, it is an hyperparameter. You can change it to max pooling, we can change it to min, we can change it to average pooling. Based on do these fine tuning and see how you are getting the how the performance of the model is varying. So, now this is one cycle where you have passed an input image, we have passed through a convolution, we have passed through a ReLU, we have passed through a pooling, and we have taken 3 different kernels. So, for the first kernel we got this feature, for the second kernel we got this, for the third kernel we got this. Now, if you understand, if you look into this matrix, what it has extracted is this line. If you look this, these are the values where it is maximum. If you look into this, you see this diagonal values are high. Probably maybe it has extracted by using one kernel, that kernel has extracted this feature. And when we write x, you have this portion also, we have this portion. So, this portion, you look here, you know, this is the place where the values are high. So, I hope you are understanding, you know, by using a different kernels, we are able to extract the more meaningful different features. Now, by passing this input image and passing through a convolution, ReLU and pooling, we got this output. Now, for me this is still not sufficient, because what is the size? It is 4 cross 4, and here also it is a 4 cross 4, and we have 4 cross 4. So, we have totally 4 cross 4, 3 different is what we have got. Now, the same operation we will again continue. We will again have one more layer of convolution, one more time we will perform the same, we will repeat this operations. Now, this time when we are passing an input to this convolution, what input we pass? We do not pass this x, now we pass this matrix. We pass this matrix, we pass this matrix. On this again we pass an kernel, again kernel will, you are performing a convolution operation, it will pass through a ReLU again, and it will pass through a pooling. Now, what we got features are, these are the features that we have obtained. Now, once we get this, what was earlier? Earlier was 4 cross 4, like this we had 3, now we have 2 cross 2, 2 cross 2, 2 cross 2 and 2 cross 2. Now, what we are now doing, this entire, we are going to flatten this. How are we flattening this? If you consider this matrix 1.55, 0.55, 1, this we are converting it into an you know, in a flattened layer. The second matrix we are converting it into a flattened layer. The third matrix we are converting it into a flattened layer. Why are we doing this? Because if I consider an original input image, the original input image, for example, if you consider the same, we had seen that it is 7 cross 7. If you see this 7 cross 7, 49, and let us assume it is an grayscale, so it is 49. Instead of having an input dimension as 49, so we have now scaled down to, how many we have? We have 1, 2, 3, 4. So, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. We have scaled down to 12. Correct? So, where is 49 and where is it 12? So, this is a simplest example that we have considered to understand, but in reality we never deal with such a small dimension one. We always go for a very larger. Then this convolution, I hope now you will be able to appreciate why ANN cannot be used and how CNN is overcoming this disadvantage, overcoming whatever the problem that ANN had. CNN can be used for an images, and in this process this entire is extracting the most important features. So, this portion what you have done, and how is that you will write the code? You will write the code by writing a function called flatten. And what flatten does? Flatten will change this entire into a single. Now, once this is done, rest you know very well, you have learnt already. So, in the previous you have 16. Then the rest everything will be your you are passing the hidden layers, number of neurons in the hidden layer is your choice, the activation function that you will use for your this is fully connected neural network. This is the same as what you have learnt previously. So, once you get up till here, then the next what we are writing after the flatten is you will write the hidden layers. How many number of hidden layers? It is 128 number of neurons, that your number of neurons in the hidden layer is 128. What is the activation function that we are using? We are using a ReLU activation function. Next, let us say, let us assume we are doing a binary multi-class classification problem. When we are doing a multi-class classification, how many neurons you will put at an output? We will put 3 neurons. If it is a 3 neurons, what is an activation function that we use? We use a softmax activation function. All that we have already seen, you have learnt this. So, up till here, so let us go back to the very first diagram. So, up till here is the feature extraction. You are passing an input image, then you are passing through up till your flattened layer is your feature extraction. Once you extract the features, you are flattening, and to extract the features, what are you are doing? You are performing a convolution operation. For convolution, what is that we require? For convolution, we require the kernel. We require number of kernels, size of kernel, we require an input. And in input you have to specify whether it is a the number of channels. Then you are also specifying a ReLU. Then you are once you perform the convolution operation under ReLU, you are now reducing the size. So, how are we reducing? By extracting only the most important features. So, what does the pooling? So, you can either extract most important, max pooling, min pooling, and then we have average pooling. What is average? Now, if you consider this, you will add all these and then you will take an average of it divided by 4, and whatever is the value, that will be the value that you are going to put this. So, there is no specific that you have to use max, min or average. Based, it is an hyperparameter. You can try out with the different combinations to see which pooling is helping you to give a good result. Then, not necessarily that you should have only one cycle of convolution, ReLU and pooling. You can have this any number of convolutional layers. So, here we have a 2 cycles. We have a first convolutional layer, we have a second convolutional layer. So, based on the size of an image, based on the kind of a problem that you are solving, you can have the different convolutional layers. So, once the convolutional operation is done, we will use a flattened layer. This flattened layer will help you, will pass as an input to your fully connected neural network. Here you can have any number of hidden layers, you can have any number of neurons in the hidden layer, you can also add the dropout here. So, whatever the concept that was applicable to multi-layer perceptron, all that can be applied to this particular one. And categorical cross entropy, what is the loss function? Because it is a multi-class classification, we are using categorical cross entropy. Then what is the optimizer? Because once you get the output, there will be a loss, you need to back propagate, you need to update the weights. So we require an optimizer, and since it is a classification problem, the metric that we are using here is an accuracy. And then we will train the model. So this is all what we are seeing in the I will stop the session here, and in the coming session, in the next session we will see the Google Colab, where we will see the actual implementation of CNN. I will stop the class here. Thank you.